Hello, everyone, and welcome to another panel as part of Hacking HR April series. Today, our panel is going to be the Employee Experience Design Frameworks and Practical Execution. This is Mine. I'm connecting from sunny Istanbul, Turkey. And let's see who we have in our audience. Where are you joining from? Let's see the comments. It's always a beauty of Hacking HR series to see so many people connecting from all over the world. Sometimes it's evening time for you, sometimes it's just the beginning of your day. When we have people from different continents, different culture backgrounds, but what makes us in the common denominator is Hacking HR, that we have this passion to change things, to transform how we do the way that we work. We have Colombia, London, North Carolina, Philippines. It must be already the end of your day. Thanks for joining. Texas, Germany, Virginia. It's UK and not sunny. I'm sorry for the sun. Usually I don't do my webinars here, but I have been enjoying the sun so much that I said, okay, let's have the sun with us today. Spain, how's the weather in Spain? I wonder, it must be getting warmer now. Maryland, USA, New York, Massachusetts, Virginia. Okay, so we have the East Coast and the West Coast. Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Must be hot there. Okay, who else? Let's see. We have so many people joining us from all around the world today. Yeah, I am soaking up my sun. I really enjoy it. I mean, I'm done with the winter time now. It's about to get warm here as well. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I was in Saudi Arabia last month for the LEAP conference. It was amazing. I was really impressed by how much the city was evolving. Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Hong Kong. Okay, it must be really late there. Italy. Welcome, Europe, South Africa. Okay, wow, such a diverse audience we have. Okay, so let's invite our panelists on the stage. Kristen, Ludmila, Michael, and Tiffany, and Rancy. Rancy, it's great to see you again on our panel. How is everyone? Where are you joining from? Let's start with Christine. Christine, where are you joining from?
Today, I happen to be joining from sunny Italy.
Sunny, where you said you were breaking up?
In Italy.
You're in Italy. Okay, that's perfect. You're joining from Europe. Amazing. Where in Italy do you get the chance to see the sun?
We are in Milan right now.
Milan, okay, nice. You're a bit in the north, but it's good that you have sun there. Rancy, where are you joining from?
Nice to see you, Mine. I am joining from Brisbane, Australia.
Australia. What time is it there?
It's midnight.
Oh my God. Okay. I cannot promise to keep it short, but we'll just like end on time. Great to have you. Hi, Tiffany. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So I am in Alexandria, Virginia, which is about 15 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. So I'm on the East Coast.
Okay. Okay. And how's the weather?
It's actually going to be
I know that it's early in the morning.
Yeah, but it's going to be very nice today. It's been like really cold, so it's going to be nice spring weather. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, amazing. So we have the sun with us today. You know, there's going to be a sun eclipse. So maybe it's now the time that it's shining. So it's going to go away for a minute.
Yeah, it is.
So before the eclipse. Yeah. Hi, Michael. Where are you joining from?
Good morning, everyone. I'm joining from Tennessee. I'm about 6 hours away from Tiffany by car.
Okay, perfect. And how's the weather?
It's overcast, but otherwise it should be a nice day.
Okay, perfect. And Ludmila, where are you joining from?
I'm in Southern California, and it is also very sunny. It's 7 a.m., so it's just got sunny.
Just started. Yeah. Okay, let's start with you. I want to have a quick round introducing yourself briefly, what you're doing, what your passion is, and what are you bringing to our conversation today. Let's start with you, Ludmila.
I am a professor of industrial organizational psychology, but my work within industrial organizational psychology has always been on the side of inclusion. I started my career in global diversity many, many years ago, and then I always wanted to figure out how to create organizations that are inclusive, not just of one characteristics like national cultures, but of every aspect of human being. And so that's something that I've been doing my entire life. And the last several years, I kind of went from big level national cultures to the psychological level of inclusion and looking at neuroinclusion and how neurodiversity is so often forgotten in employee experience and really everything else that we do in the workplace. So now I have written a book, The Canary Code, on intersectional and neuroinclusion in the workplace and how we can create belonging for people from all the different backgrounds. So that's really where my passion is, and I mostly work with organizations on creating neuroinclusion with understanding that every person has multiple aspects to who we are, and we need to approach anything intersectionally.
Wow, I can't wait to hear about your ideas and your intake on this topic. Michael.
Yes. After 25 years in the HR trenches, for the last 5 years, I've focused more on research. And the research has been centered mostly around employee expectations. So a very hot topic, something that has changed quite a bit over the last 5 years in particular. So we've done several rounds of research looking into expectations, how they have changed, how they're impacting the bottom line, and also the employee experience, obviously.
Oh, welcome to our panel.
Thank you very much.
Tiffany.
Yes, so I am the founder of Grounding Work. And at Grounding Work, I have the amazing opportunity to be able to go in and help organizations either establish their HR or to reestablish HR. There are a lot of businesses that have been running for quite some time that don't have HR in place. So I get to come in and help them set up the, their foundational HR things. And so that's what I do. I've been in HR now for 20 years. But my passion definitely lies in the employee experience. I've been, as of the last couple of, maybe like the last 2 years or so, really dug deep into human-centered design and design thinking. So I got a couple of certifications last year in that, and it has just enhanced my work and being able to help organizations, and then also being able to, help them with their employee experience. So I am having a ball.
That's great. We will be talking more about how to use the design approach and also apply it to employee experience strategies. And welcome to our panel. Rancy.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon once again, everyone. So my name is Rancy. I am the founder and managing director of Perky People. It's an employee experience HR consulting business. So I operate in New Zealand, but also in the Middle East, specifically in the UAE. So we design happy workplaces. So I'm going to bring in like practical day-to-day, like tactical strategic approaches to employee experience. I call myself a practitioner of employee experience design, because I remember back before I started the company, I was a group head of one of the biggest luxury retail company in Dubai. And one of my roles there was actually the group head of employee experience. And I knew the struggle of starting from where do I begin designing, redesigning, and putting things in place. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. Let's talk more about happy workplaces. That's where my passion is about as well, you know. And Christine.
Well, hello. I am one of the people who are still in the HR trenches. I am a people and culture leader with Manpower Group and have been in the human resources, organizational design, employee experience space for over 25 years as well. And I think if I had to think about my passion right now is centered around making workplaces easier to navigate, both for managers and for employees. So I've heard it a couple times here, setting clear expectations, the design thinking, taking some of those things all together. So that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. And it's all great to have you on this panel. Such expertise, long years of experience. And that takes me to our first question. So today we will be talking about the frameworks and practical execution of employee experience design. But before that, let's talk about the fundamentals of what employee experience design actually has. So Michael, I would like to start with you. Can you just like name those, you know, the foundational requirements that needs to be in place if we are talking about an employee experience design?
Yeah, let me start high level and then dig a little deeper because there's obviously quite a bit to unpack. As I mentioned, we've done several rounds of research at UKG and the Human Insights team. And so we've found there are basically 4 components that really influence the experience. The first one is fair pay and relevant benefits. But that's kind of table stakes, meaning that's what you have to be even part of the game these days. But the next 3 is where 63% of employee expectations fall, and that is be seen, be heard, and be connected. So very basic things, but these basic things are being frequently completely overlooked. And if they're not there, the cascading effect is that trust is suffering. And so trust is really, from what we have found in our research, the underpinning of a great employee experience, because you can't have inclusion, you can't have belonging, you can't have any of that if there's no trust between the employer and the employee and their manager. And then more specifically, but let me hold on that right now, but there's obviously more granular detail, but being seen, being heard, and being connected, along with fair pay and relevant benefits, is kind of the foundational aspect of a great employee experience. Because if that's not there, then if you operate on a level above that, it's like putting lipstick on a pig.
I love the analogy. I love using metaphors and analogies, so I love that. Thank you. So Rancy, you are working with corporations, helping them to build happy workplaces. And when we talk about employee experience design and trust and being heard, seen, and how do you see that happening in the companies? Do they take it into that order, or what is the employee experience design that's prevalent in the companies today?
Where I operate mostly in the Middle East, especially in the UAE, I think it varies when you look at different organizations. But one thing is quite common is around the culture, which Michael spoke about. You know, the trust, the sense of belonging, feeling valued and recognized, support from the manager, support from the leaders. And they change, you know, like from one company to the other, because some companies, you know, like they are proud to like, oh, you know, like we don't really care so much about like having work-life balance, because here we work like long hours, we work weekends, we work on holidays, but we will give you the best tools out there, the best technology, because that's also experience. And for some people, they're okay with that. So I think it depends also on what companies value when it comes to driving employee experience. No one at least from what I have seen, I've been operating now in this space for the last 10 years. From what I've seen, no one company is the same when it comes to creating that desired experience.
Okay, that's great to hear. And that's what I would like to ask Christine, because you're working in a global company, and that globalization also adds some difference to how it is being experienced among the different locations. So how do you see that happening among different locations, the employee experience design? Do you just like see that difference between cultures or countries?
Absolutely. And I would go so far as to say that employee experience is one of those things that's very personal, right? So not only does it change with the company, it changes with the location, as you've indicated, it changes with the person, it changes with their season of life, right? So when we think about designing employee experience, it really does come down to having a group of people really understand what their employees are looking for. So it's a combination of managers and HR people and really some training and development folks, and being able to look to craft something. So we see differences in countries, and so we have to give our leaders tools that will allow them to individualize that experience for employees. And so it might mean, as has been mentioned, that we need more tools. We need more flexibility in certain locations based on things such as traffic in India. We have to make sure that we aren't setting pure work hours in those locations, because it can vary. So there's really some very specific things, as you mentioned, that we have to understand about the different countries that we operate in.
That's really important, and it's also great that you are taking into consideration the different situations or the requirements per country, or even not within the country, per location. And that's, I think, what we need to touch upon as well, because like this is not like one size fits all. There needs to be like tweaks, even if it's within the same company. There needs to be some changes among even the employee resource groups. So, Ludmila, I would like to take some perspective from academia and about the definition as well. Like, if we look at the definition of employee experience, how do you see that differ from the regular HR practices? Like, can we call employee experience as an HR thing, or is it like beyond that, beyond regular HR practices?
It does depend on organization how it is practiced. So usually we talk about it as this overarching quality of what employees experiencing from, application and hiring through onboarding through the entire employee life cycle, but it does overlap with what HR does. So in a way, it is a quality of everything that HR does, because it does translate into employee experience. If your payroll is having hiccups, it's going to translate into a negative employee experience. So it's an outward expression to an employee of what HR does, but it's not just HR. It also managers. It's also how coworkers are trained to collaborate with each other. So it is a reflection of everything HR does plus, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's perfect. And now that takes me to the framework, the design part of it. So Tiffany, you mentioned that you have been using the design thinking approach with companies when designing their employee experience. And first, how do you use it? And does that also differentiate among companies, like sizes? What are those criteria that makes it different from one to the other?
So yeah, kind of going with the same theme how everyone's been saying, it's different for different organizations, even different frameworks. Now the same framework is not going to work for every organization, but a good place to start when it comes to design thinking and things like that is really taking the time to do your homework, right? So this is like when it comes to like doing the listening, doing the observation, talking with people, really listening and really hearing from employees, from management, from owners, from all the stakeholders that you can, to just get a good picture of what, of what things look like now, where they're at, before you start building on to something, or, innovating something new. A lot of times I've seen companies or organizations, they will, if they see someone else doing something, they'll just say, oh, this is nice, and let's just do this. And they're just grabbing for, for different things and different ways to implement, but it's not authentic to who they are as an organization. And so that's why it's really important to take the time to listen, and to do that foundational work, because you could be doing all of these things and saying, hey, well, we've got, ERGs, and we've got, just all these different things. But if it's not resonating or, really connecting with your employees, then again, that is going to reflect their experience, that they're having. And then also the experience will also dictate how engaged they are.
Mina, can I just add?
This
I
is...
think what Tiffany has
Yeah,
said
sure.
there.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is also why design thinking became very popular with employee experience design. Because when you look at the design thinking framework, where it starts with empathizing, what Tiffany rightly said there, it's like listening to people. You really empathize with employees. In the past, design thinking was only mainly used for customers, understanding what customers want. But in reality, as HR or even as managers, like what Ludmila said, like it's also understanding what your employees want. And then you start defining what are the problems, because you do your internal research, and then you start brainstorming with everyone on what's the right solution for this, and understanding that whatever solution you came up with now is not set in stone, because there will be iterations along the way, because that's when you start piloting something, experimenting with something, and it doesn't stop there, because it's that infinity loop of employee experience design does not stop just because you finish the design. I want to give an example. Like I had a client some 4 years ago. They were quite new in the industry. It's a tech company, and they didn't have a recruitment process, let alone also not have this onboarding process. So we put in place the recruitment process for them, and also the onboarding process. But because it's a tech company, we can imagine like things are changing really fast, and for them, they need to adopt also all these new technologies. So you can imagine every year, just because we created the most elaborate and most sophisticated onboarding process in first year of their organization, that has changed significantly. So employee experience design does not stop just because you have produced a process for it.
Okay, so this is great. And our audience, by the way, agrees on that. There has been some discussions going on about laziness, about how copycat culture is true with most of the companies. So you need to do your homework, and it doesn't stop. So it's a ever evolving process. So it's like an infinite loop where you need to just like listen to your employees and make those pivots. Christine, how do you listen to employees? So what is this practical way of listening to employees?
It's a really great question. We've used, it used to be a satisfaction survey, and then it was an engagement survey. And now we're doing these, instead of a 15-question survey, it's a 2-question pulse survey at the end of, a week or a day or something like that. We can be a little bit involved with surveys if we're not actually acting on them. But what we do know is that we need to check in with employees when there are significant changes in their employment, when there are significant changes in their employee journey. So at times when they get a promotion, at times when they get a new team member, times when they even just get a brand new manager, having the conversation about the experience of that and how it actually worked because sitting in HR, I can tell you how I think it should work. And to Michael's point, I can tell you the process that I've laid out to get it to work. And I think I've built in trust. I think I've built in communication to this process, but the process might not have been followed, right? So it's important for us to go right to the employees and say, how did this feel for you? How did it feel when you got a new manager? How did it feel when your employee announcement came out about your promotion? How did your manager have that conversation with you? And whether you do it through stay interviews or you do it through, short surveys, or you do it just through a 5 to 10 minute conversation, getting that input to make sure even that the things that you think are planned out very well are actually working the way that you want them to is really important.
Okay, so you're doing check-ins to make sure that it's resonating with people, that it's being lived. And I'd like to call this like more preemptive approach, because otherwise, you take that extra step when it happens, when something happens, when a problem occurs.
And I think we have to be very clear about who we're going to be as an organization and get clear on those 2 or 3 things and communicate them very proactively and get input, right? So that listening piece, how you're getting that input from your employees to design your employee experience. Companies can't be all things to all people. So what are those few things that you're going to focus on, and really making sure that those are valuable to your employees? That inclusion piece, that listening piece, how they're treated by their managers, and just being able to really communicate that clearly and consistently is also going to be critical. Not, you're right, just the check-in after the fact.
Yeah, and our audience also agrees on check-ins to see how people feel, because usually it's the feeling that stays with people, and that it's really important to check on that. So Michael, I would like to ask you one question. Now we are talking about how to build those frameworks, and like how easy it is to build those frameworks, or how can we make it easier for the companies, for an audience here that wants to start new, fresh, and create this employee experience design? What is that, easy way to do so?
The easy way, right? The easy button, is that what we were looking for? By the way, I love what Chris
exactly
said. The checking in part is critically important, and the larger the organization, the more sophisticated tools you can probably leverage. And with AI, there's a lot that can be done even behind the scenes that doesn't even require individuals to be actively involved in assessing kind of the feelings and the communications that are being processed. But quite honestly, most HR functions are small HR functions. Most HR functions have maybe 1 or 2 individuals. And for them to go through this entire process of assessing and analyzing, and meaning it's like a huge process to go through. So here's the easy button. And I've practiced the easy button for probably 10 years while in HR, long before inclusion and belonging were terms that people knew about. And it worked beautifully. It's a single question that I have asked my direct reports on a weekly basis. The front end of the question always stays the same. The back end changes. So here's the structure. Is there anything I can do to make your job more fun? So I'm picking something outrageous a little bit here, because who's asking for fun normally? So is there anything I can do to make your job? That's the front end of the question. And then the back end could be more fun, less stressful, more productive. A single question. And once you have asked that question, just be quiet. Just be quiet and give the employee the opportunity to respond. When you initially start out with this, you get a lot of deer in the headlight kind of looks at you because people don't know what you're up to. And the important part here is you do it consistently. On a weekly basis is ideal if you can. And the other really, really critical aspect is you close the loop. So what I mean by close the loop. So let's say somebody's saying, hey, and this is, by the way, a live case that I had. Every time the sales team comes back from a conference, they give me hundreds of business cards I need to manually type into our OCR software. And then the individual was asking me, do you know how small the font is on these business cards? And she was older lady in her mid 60s wearing glasses. And I said, oh, I can only imagine. And so that is the challenge she gave me. I didn't tell her I fixed this. I said, let me look into this. And then I ordered, and this was in 2005, so that was quite a while ago, I ordered a business card scanner, had it delivered to her, and it cut 3/4 of the time out doing this particular task. And she was in tears when this little machine arrived. And it doesn't cost always money. I found 9 out of 10 times when you get feedback from employees after asking that question, it is a little tweak in a policy. It's moving furniture, it's hanging a picture differently. It's the little stuff that gets in the way to have an environment that is enjoyable. So to summarize, the easy button, one question asked every week of every direct report, and then close the loop within 7 to 10 days. Every HR function can do that. And if this is being rolled out to the entire business, you can influence the culture in a really quick and effective way. I hope that wasn't too basic.
Yeah, I really love this. No, because the thing is, we usually look for the overcomplicated or just like, some fancy solutions. Whereas, the solution is usually mine, and this basic or like the simple things. So I really love this.
We want the personal contact. We want the connection, especially in a virtual environment. We want to have these opportunities. And while this can be initially quite business focused, over time, I've seen these questions really go into more the private side, and you develop relationships with individuals you previously didn't have. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of potential in that.
Sure. Exactly. By the way, there was one question about the session being recorded. Yes, it's being recorded. If you have your membership, if you have an account on hackinghr.io, if you don't, you can go ahead and register yourself at hackinghr.io. And for anyone who is registered on the website, it's free, or you can access all the recordings. So yes, you have a chance to watch it later. Tiffany, so taking from where Michael left, we are listening. Okay, so we ask the question, we listen, then how do we take action? And so like closing the loop, what is the easiest way to close that loop?
So it was interesting. I'm glad you asked Michael first, like what the easy way is, because I'm glad he has the solution, because I don't have an easy way, right? And I say that because I think work like this, it's kind of how Michael was, sharing. It's a lot of different steps and a lot of pieces involved. So even with going back and closing the loop and talking with people and being consistent on top of all of the other work that you do, it's a lot. So like I said, it's not really an easy way, but I just think that some of the best ways that I have found when it comes to, to kind of putting this all together, after doing the listening, is definitely, and I don't know if Kristen mentioned it or someone mentioned it, but, if it's something like a survey that you're doing and if there's no follow-up from the survey, that could be, really detrimental. So like things like that are important. So I think after listening, kind of take the list that you have of all the things that employees have said that are really important and prioritize, like what are the things that are most important, and then what are the things that you can implement quickly. There's always going to be a long list. Like it's always going to be a running list of all of the things that people need. It changes all the time, depending on the season, depending on the times. If you have a lot of people, a lot of turnover happening right now, needs could be changing for, the current employees. It could be a plethora of things, but I think just taking it, piece by piece, tackling like what's the most important. And then like, going from there. because what's really important is like people want to be heard, right? That's always important, but they want to be sure that, okay, that like you hear me and that something is going to be done. So just like any of us, other places that we have experiences, right? We have our human experience. So if we're at a hotel somewhere and, we want things to be a certain way at a hotel, it was advertised this way, we're expecting it this way, or if someone's asking us questions, oh, Tiffany, how was your stay? And well, you know what, I'm glad you asked. And then I'll go down my list of things, and sometimes things can change, sometimes they won't. But I think when I get like emails back from someone at a hotel that says, hi, Miss Deans, we appreciate you staying with us. Sorry that this wasn't to your liking. This is what we're going to do to make it better. Just things like that. And again, I'm not sure who said this too about just like that. Maybe it was Michael, about like the small things, but those really do add up and make a huge difference. So it's listening. It's, doing the follow-up. It could be really hard or challenging sometimes in HR because, like I said, we do a lot of different things. But just, that follow-up, that closing of the loop, it's very important. So.
Yeah, so it's because if we don't close the loop, this is what I keep telling the companies that I'm working with. If you don't close the loop, then it's not going to mean anything. Like getting the feedback is not going to mean anything. And it's even make them more miserable because the next time you're asking for feedback, they will know that there's not going to be anything that's changing based on their feedback. So it's really important. So that's why I really wanted to underline that closing the loop part. Ludmila, do you want to add anything on top of that?
I think closing the loop is very important, but another thing that I like to talk about is asking people before designing something, before doing something. So that's really the key of what I talk about. Inclusion, especially inclusion of people that are typically forgotten in inclusion efforts, like neurodivergent people, disabled people, because those are very rarely on the radar. Asking before planning the event, because if you plan onboarding and it's not accessible, and then people tell you afterwards, you know what, I felt humiliated because you made me do something that's not accessible to me physically or psychologically for whatever reason, that's too late. So my advice that I usually want to start with is starting with participation. It's a first point of the canary code, participation before you do something, because there's only so many variables any of us can think of. And humans are very rarely aware of things that don't apply to them personally. It's human nature. There's a lot of things to be aware of. And if something is not a part of our life, we don't even think about it. So yeah, I'm athletic. So I think the obstacle course will be fun onboarding experience, not for everyone. So ask people, think about, especially people and groups that you don't identify with, ahead of time, and ask them ahead of time and not afterwards as much as possible.
Yeah, this is really important as well. Francie, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I want to add, like, this is really interesting. Because, like we've been talking about like listening and then implementing it, making sure that we get feedback from people. In where I operate, what I have seen that has been a perennial problem for a lot of organizations is the actual execution, because HR think that they can execute everything. But the reality is, if you work in an organization that is like very dispersed in different regions, you need managers. You need people in other countries. You need ambassadors. You need these people who will execute things for you. So we cannot deny the fact that managing change is also equally important, if not more important, after the design. Personally, from my experience, the actual design is the easiest thing. You hear from people, they want this, they want to improve this. You design the program, it's nice, it's shiny, it's bright. But when you implement and the managers are not on board, or they're not enabled, or they're not empowered to actually execute this, things are going to fail, and you will keep repeating the same thing, and you just keep designing, like shiny, beautiful things, but no one will execute. So for me, employee experience design, it is a practice, but it's also a mindset. I see like some comments from people that it's transformation, because it is. So when you look at employee experience, there are tactical approaches where you have the low-hanging fruits, like what Michael said. I've been in a situation also where people just want a coffee machine in the pantry, and they didn't have coffee machine for a long time. That's great. So employee experience design is basically falling in love with problem solving, because if you don't like problems, then you're going to go crazy in this practice. That's why you need to look at the tactical approaches, but at the same time, you also need to look at strategically as an organization. This has to be part of the priorities year on year, because if this is not part of the strategy of the organization, at least the people side, the culture side of the business, then I think things will fail, because managers not going to be on board. They don't have KPI around this. They're not empowered. They're not developed. They don't know how to do this. So there's a lot of other components that we as HR need to consider after things have been designed.
Thank you for bringing up this issue, because I was going to ask, why do we fail? Because we know what to do. Everyone knows what to do. We are putting so many things in place, but we fail. So I was going to ask that, and I think, Christine, you unmuted yourself. Do you want to add something to that?
I did, and I think Renzi is completely correct. It's just like we've gone through this journey with employee engagement. If managers aren't focused on employee engagement, it doesn't get better. As HR professionals, we've gone on this journey about change management. We've gone on this journey. I mean, so if you go back and you look over the decades, there has always been something that we've been trying to get managers to take ownership of. And I think from a human resources perspective, our main responsibility is making sure that the basics of blocking and tackling are being executed. So being able to talk about how people get paid, what they get paid, be able to bring people on board and have them feel good about the organization, have the payroll system working, have their questions about benefits get answered very quickly and honestly, right? So having those things nailed down is going to help us for sure, but gaining the manager buy-in. So if anyone on the panel does have the easy button for that, now would be the time, because we go through this, I would say probably decade after decade. So anybody who's been in this HR world for any amount of time knows that there's always something. So Tiffany, Michael, if you've got the easy button now for how to get the managers to own it, if that would be the gem and the mic drop, and I think we could just be done.
I'm not sure I have the easy button for that, but I can certainly appreciate.
I'm listening.
But I think there is an opportunity here, because I've led large wellness initiatives across global companies. And if the leadership didn't take ownership, it always failed. And I think the feedback we frequently get from HR perspective, talking to the C-suite, is, well, we can't just own everything and drive it forward. But I think in this particular case, in identifying employee expectations, we've asked so many companies, what are you struggling with? And the number one topic that came up across the board, almost with every single company, is to say, our leaders are not capable of doing the things we need them to do. So we know it's a huge issue. And I think if it's owned from the C-suite down, and make it easy enough that every manager, doesn't matter how old school the manager is, can implement small steps in the process. And quite honestly, that gets me back to the single question to be asked, because that's a really easy one to do. And that could be the stepping stone to get managers roped in. But it has to be coming down from the C-suite. Otherwise, HR can't own this, because otherwise it's not going to happen. Not as easy of a button as I'd hope, but I think it's...
I completely agree, Michael. Kristen, I'm sorry, I do not have the easy button, but I do have some insight. What I have found a lot of times, when it comes to like managers is managers are less engaged because they're not fully equipped. And so you have organizations that, you have the C-suite, they're like, okay, well, we don't have time to manage all these people, so we're going to put managers in place. And sometimes they will put managers or leaders in place that haven't been a manager, aren't interested in managing, don't have the, the skills and the knowledge to do that. And so we're kind of like, they're kind of set up to not be successful in that. And then it's just a trickle down effect. So I think really taking time to equip and educate managers will help them to be engaged. Now I'm not saying that that's going to be like the magic fix all and they're going to be on board with everything that, that you do. But one, if they, if they're equipped and if they're educated and, and how to be a manager, but then also sometimes too, they've got a lot on their plate. They have to manage people. They still have their workload to do. I have found that sometimes just, come on, let's go, grab a cup of coffee, just taking them out and just having a conversation, letting them have space to just be or to breathe. That can kind of help them to kind of, okay, accept the change that is happening. And, maybe kind of, giving them something to do as far as like, allowing them to be a champion and say, hey, well, how about this? We're going to, you're going to be the champion for this and, whatever, just, it's really just making people feel good. So I find that
to empower them.
Yes.
Empowering them to giving them the accountability. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Ludmila, I have one question from the audience for you about generations. How have multiple generations in the workplace, some of whom are very vocal, with very different needs, complicated the process, and how do you structure solutions? So, how do you manage that diversity and inclusion while creating the employee experience design? And also, Michael was mentioning that the needs, the expectations have changed over time. But how do we make sure that we are embracing them all?
Yes, and people always talk about generations and they say, okay, so now we have so many generations within the workplace, and Gen Z and boomers have very different needs. And on the one hand, it is important to look at the research and to ask those particular generations what they need and how they envision the workplace. But also sometimes I think we create those artificial divisions and we forget that everyone has core human needs. They could be expressed a little bit differently, and some people might be a little bit louder about those needs than others, but everyone wants to be treated with dignity. Everyone needs to have a workplace that's flexible, that allows them to work with their strengths and not be forced into a box that doesn't fit. So very often people just kind of say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But if you actually get to know, there might be some different needs like in benefits and so forth. You definitely need to address all the different packages that you would have, people with families and single people and all kinds of arrangements that our benefits forget about, considering different lifestyles and different kinds of people we work with. But as far as core human needs being heard and having this loop responding to your needs, it's definitely possible. And very often people just go with stereotypes and they say, okay, so older people, they don't know how to use technology, and younger people, they don't know how to talk to a human being. And those things are such stereotypes that whether it's generation or whatever, we really should not be going on those. And just trying to go away from the labels and try to find out what people, specific humans in your organizations need right now. And very often it is going to be aligned. And if they do want different kinds of events and different kinds of socialization, those things are really not that very hard to say, okay, so this particular celebration is going to be this style and this particular celebration is going to be that style. I think very often people take this generational differences that are real, but they make them sound like we're from different planets. And you know what? It's not like Gen Xers don't want flexibility. Anybody who is human has the same human needs. So trying to go after that and then asking people specifically what they need is something that can work. And just remembering that, yes, we have different needs, but the core thing is we don't expect that we're going to get everything every time that we want, but we do expect that people will at least provide a reasonable explanation for what's going on that respects our dignity as a human being.
Mm-hmm. So does anyone want to add on that? Because we are about to
I would
yeah,
love to.
Michael, please do.
Yeah, I would love to. So I didn't go into the more details earlier, but wanting to be seen, heard, and connected, there are actually 12 specific employee expectations behind that. So that's research backed. And we actually created a free research-based online assessment tool where companies can identify how well they're addressing employee expectations. I'll be happy to share that link if that is of interest. As I said, it's free. And it's based on 4 years.
Yes, please do. Can you use the comment section?
Yeah.
On the right. Okay, so if we can post the link there, because everyone's going to see that even after the live session. Okay, perfect. So as we are coming towards the end of our session, yes, please, Ludmila, go ahead.
Just one more thing about generations. So we always talk about Gen Z are very focused on mental health and they want psychological awareness. But Gen Zs are really voicing what everyone else has been conditioned not to say. So every generation wants attention to psychological well-being and mental health. So if that is something that's done a response to Gen Z, it's actually something that is going to be welcomed by other people. They were just raised not to bring up those psychological needs, but they exist in every generation. So that's another thing that I just wanted to add to the previous question.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So I would like to ask everyone, what has worked best for you? Like any technology, any tool, any framework, any practice strategy that you either practiced firsthand or that you saw somewhere else, someone else doing and succeeding with that execution. Renzi, do you want to go ahead?
I'll start with when you really want to invest time and energy in employee experience design, start small, especially for large organizations. Don't think that like by running an engagement survey, culture survey, however you want to call it, that you have to create all of a sudden a group framework. That's well and good. The intention is always good, but you might want to maybe like see from your data, like, okay, maybe I'm going to start with this country. Maybe I'm going to start with this division. And if it's successful, then see if the other business units, the other divisions, the other countries might benefit from it, but use that as a foundation design and let them do whatever tweaking enhancements that they want to do to respect the locality, like what's unique about that department or division. And at least from what I have seen working with clients now for X number of years, is that it has worked, because one size does not fit everyone anymore. And it's true, you cannot attend to like every single person's need. But I think if we also, as HR practitioner, if we have a mindset of we create the baseline, the foundational experience, and then let the managers also customize by enabling managers with tools, developing them where there's lacking skills, but also provide those technologies for them.
That's great. Christine?
Sorry, struggling to get off mute. I think that the starting small piece is really, really important. I would second that 100%. And whether it is you're starting with one country or one division, or you're starting with one specific thing, you know, and making sure that that goes through the entire organization. But if you do try to boil the ocean, kind of like with everything else, you're going to run up against just struggles that we're all talking about. And I think it is best if we can just pick one small thing that we can move forward in order to start to get some traction and show employees that we're really committed to it.
Yeah, so start small, take small steps, see what's working, what's not working. That's a great approach. Tiffany?
Well, I'll say one quick thing, and then I'll say a strategy that I like to use. So I think it's so important to use data, right? And I know like we talk about data a lot, but there's so much to a story. Like you can tell a story from the data. And I know I know that now HR we're moving more into that realm, which I'm really glad about, because it is important for us. And there's so much we can see just by looking at the data. So when it comes to those surveys and comes to, you know, the number of EEs we have and just everyone's background and things like that, like the numbers, like the data always tells a story. So that's a foundational thing to look at no matter where you are in the process of designing the employee experience. And one of the strategies or one of the things that I like to do is journey mapping. And that is, and I found that has worked for me with most people that I've worked with. And that's when you're able to really take a big picture of the process and go through it step by step. And just like from the person. So it would be like for our employees, you know, walking through the process, what things are they feeling, experiencing, seeing, to get to like, you know, the end goal. So journey mapping is great because it allows you to think through things. And then when you're doing it with, you know, maybe another person or two, hearing other people's ideas, it's wonderful. And I've come up with so many great ideas from doing that. So.
Yeah, so like, you know, putting those touch points where you're touching, where the employee is touching, the processes where the company is touching, so that everyone from the start, because usually we don't even realize that it starts with the job ads, even before the interview.
Yes,
even before the journey starts there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's perfect. Ludmila?
Okay, it's 2 words, but it's a little bit complicated. The 2 words is leadership pipeline, because if you pay attention to how you figure out what do you need in your managers and what their real jobs are, and not imaginary jobs where you just kind of throw their job description together and then promote or hire based on it, but do a little bit extra homework ahead of time and identify people that really will be able to do the things that are needed, and build a leadership pipeline that allows you to identify not imaginary talent because someone, you know, spoke up once and got noticed, but a really planfully select people for management positions so that they would be the kind of people that are able to work with the ideas and strategies and the level of care that are needed. Because yes, very often it's just like, oh, somebody left, let's just hire. And when you do it, very often mistakes happen. And that's a place where you have to be extremely, extremely planful.
Okay, yeah, that's good. By the way, people are asking for Michael's link. We just posted on Facebook and YouTube. Let me see if I can do it. Barbara, can you post it on LinkedIn as well? because we're missing the link on LinkedIn. And Michael.
I keep it really short. Employee experience is really requiring something very foundational, and that is trust. All the tweaking and turning of levers that is related to employee experience isn't working, or isn't at least not resulting in the outcome that we're looking for if there's no foundation of trust. And what I found is trust is frequently misunderstood, overlooked, and undervalued. So I would suggest, before you even get started on employee experience, find a way to improve trust within your organization.
It's really great that we are ending the conversation with trust, because everything starts with trust, so that we have that on top of the mind of our audience. By the way, for the people who are waiting for the link, I'm not sure we will be on time with providing the link. Barbara, did you get a chance to post it on LinkedIn? Otherwise, please reach out either to me or Michael on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to provide you with the link. So if you can connect with either Michael or myself, I'll be sharing the link, or Michael can share the link with you if you're interested. I will also try to find the live on LinkedIn and post the link there. And okay, Barbara just posted it, so if you can check the LinkedIn comments, you will see the link. And otherwise, you can reach out to either of us and we will provide you with the link. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your insights with us, your experience. We had a beautiful representation from different backgrounds, and thank you to our audience who has been contributing with their comments, with their questions. And thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at the next Hacking HR April Series webinar. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.